many HLFs have you been to?
It's my fourth.
Did you come
four over five, yes.
all in a row?
With some, yes, I skipped one.
Okay. So you saw the first one?
I saw the first one, yes.
Yeah. And you keep coming back, so apparently you like it.
I like the event, yes.
Yeah. What do you like about it?
Well, the interaction with colleagues and of course the interaction with students. I like this very much, and sometimes you get very good questions, very interesting questions, and they have ideas you've never thought about before, so that's very interesting.
Is there any particular idea that's popped out that you remember especially?
Well, last year I gave a presentation about the nature of computing, and I had some very clever remarks about the nature of information by students. Okay. Not anything specific, but the interaction with students is always very enriching for me and very interesting.
So think back about when you were around this age, let's say early 20s. Can you tell me what you were doing in sort of the period between 22 and 27? How did your life progress?
Okay, so I should say that at that time I was studying electrical engineering in Athens. And when I finished my studies in Athens, I decided to go abroad. And I left, I was in Greece, in fact I am Greek. And at that time in Greece we had a dictatorship, and I had to leave the country in some special conditions. You can imagine this. So I went to France for some reason, and when I went to France I wanted to study physics. And then I discovered there the first, I got in contact with the first computers, and I decided to study computer science.
And what year would that have been?
And then okay, I started studies in computer science. And for some reasons I could not leave the country. I had no passport, I was in a special situation. So I did my thesis there, and I did all my career in France.
And what year did you discover computers?
Sorry?
In what year did you discover computers?
So it was in 1970.
Oh, 1970. And what computer was it?
So it was a PDP-8. I mean, it was small computer with cards and all this. I mean, you had to program in very basic language, in assembly language. But I found this fascinating. And for this reason, I gave up my studies in physics and decided to study computer science, and I don't regret this. But at that time, nobody could figure out what computer science would be and what information technology would be.
Did you have any particular mentors, any teachers who...
Yes, I've been influenced by the director of the Institute of Applied Mathematics and Informatics in Grenoble, who was a great mathematician, and okay, he discovered also in his life computers after World War II, and okay, he learned me a lot how to do research, and okay, then he retired, and I continued alone. So at that time, computers, I mean, the computer science community was a very small community, you can imagine this, and the key topics, the hot topics, were very different from the topics that are important today. It's very interesting to contemplate what has happened over these more than 45, 50 years. Yes.
Who was the mentor who affected you this?
Okay, the mentor is not known as a computer scientist, more as a mathematician. His name is Jean Kunzmann. And then I got in touch with important people. I went to meetings and met important people, other Turing Awards. And I was lucky in my career because I started working on a topic that became very important later. Which was verification. So program verification, system verification. I did my thesis on that topic because at that time computerized systems were tested, but we had no theory to verify, to exhaustively explore their behavior based on some model, mathematical model and the reasoning. So I did my thesis on that topic, and I had some ideas that were I think at that time very new ideas. The problem being that when I passed my thesis, these ideas were only theoretical because we had no powerful computers to apply these ideas. And these ideas became applicable at the beginning of the 90s, in fact. And for this reason, I got the Turing Award with 2 other colleagues from the US.
In what year was that?
In 2007.
Wow, so that's quite a long time.
That's quite a long time, yes.
And it was for the papers that you had written in
Yes, yes, and I published the first paper beginning of the 80s. Yes, I passed my thesis in 79. Also, I should say that I have applied some of these ideas to develop the technology, the fly-by-wire technology for Airbus. So my laboratory, I created a laboratory for that. And this was something really new, at least for France, to establish with a company a laboratory that developed results. And we developed all the technology for the certification of aircraft, of Airbus aircraft at that time. So this was beginning of the 90s.
Now, along the way, I imagine you've have you had students or were you?
Yes, of course.
Okay,
yes,
I didn't know if you were
yes,
in
yes,
academia.
yes.
I imagine that you've had some students who would consider you a mentor.
Yes, yes.
How do you
I was
approach
also the director of a relatively big laboratory, yes.
How do you approach that relationship? How do you think it's most effective to mentor people?
To give them a responsibility and to ask them to work hard and to give them also some freedom. Now it depends on the students, of course. There are students who like to be directed, can be very, very smart, but need that the research directions are defined. And others that like freedom, and of course freedom, you should be able to manage it. And yes, I had many different kinds of students. Some very, very brilliant students that were unable to, that wanted to have the problem well posed. If they had the problem well posed, they knew how to solve it. Very good students. I think French students are very good at that because they have a very strong background in mathematics. And then you have other students that are more open to exploring new avenues. Okay.
So it sounds like you really have to understand the person.
Yes, you have to understand the person. And for me, of course, the criterion is that the student does good research and produces good results.
Now thinking back to when you were around the age of the researchers here,
yes.
mid-20s, let's say, what advice would you give to someone at that stage in their career for the next 5 years?
Well, to have a dream, first of all. Have a dream, of course, a dream that is a realistic dream. So they should try to understand what are their capabilities, what they can do, and have a dream and pursue this dream. And not to follow beaten paths. You know, in research, it's very easy to get into a beaten path, follow the crowds, and if you do that, the chances to find something really new and exciting are very little, okay? So to find your own way, of course, you have to work hard in any case. But you should be also willing to, I mean, you should like adventure. You should take the risk. If you don't take the risk, then you cannot do anything great or anything remarkable. That's for sure.
So realistic but daring.
Yes, yes, to be realistic, to know how far you can go, but also to be willing to go far. And
well put. In your own field, what do you hope happens in the next 5 years?
Well, my field, you mean my area of interest, because now computer science, what we call computer science, computing is very, very broad.
True, but there is still a specialty in verification, yes?
No, I don't work anymore on verification. I have worked on verification until until 2000, say, just.
So maybe the first question is, what interests you now?
Okay, so I'm interested. So I think that verification has some limitations, and these are complexity limitations. And the topic has been more or less explored. The problem is that the systems become increasingly complex, and we need other techniques to guarantee their correctness. So, as I said, verification consists in building a model of the system and then analyzing exhaustively the model by doing some reasoning, applying some algorithm. There are different techniques. But this approach has obvious limitations. So I want to overcome these limitations. And one way to overcome these limitations is to apply techniques that I call by construction correct. So the idea is that systems are built out of components, and to have a theory, so components are kinds of bricks, and we glue together bricks to build complex systems or components. So to have a theory, like in other disciplines, that allow you to build complex systems out of bricks, out of components, and guarantee that the construction is correct. And this happens in other disciplines. You have nice theories, and for computing, unfortunately, we don't have good theory for the moment, so I'm working at that. And one idea, so the idea of correctness by construction is to have some theorems about how to organize the coordination between components to achieve some properties. And this does not cost so much in verification, I mean to be established as for verification. So now I'm getting technical, so I don't know whether it's clear for you.
So
yes, and also another topic, central topic in my investigations is design, so system design. Design is the process that leads from technical requirements to an artifact. So how to build a system that is complex, how to formalize your desires to make out of them technical requirements, and then how to develop the system to build an artifact, which is so a computerized system that meets the requirements. Okay, that agrees with your desires and your initial intentions. So this is a very general problem that is a problem in any engineering discipline. If you are an architect, a civil engineer, you build bridges, you build buildings, okay? You start from requirements, get an artifact. And design, I work on the formalization of the design process. How to understand. You see, you have science and engineering. Science is about understanding phenomena, understanding the world. and engineering is about changing the world by building artifacts, okay? So you have science goes from phenomena to theory, and engineering is about using theory to build artifacts. And today, I think that engineering is equally important or even more important than science. And engineering is as a process, design, the process of building artifacts, all of this approach has not been studied as deeply as the scientific approach.
Do you consider yourself a scientist or an engineer now?
I think there is a common point between engineering and science, and this is producing knowledge. And knowledge is information that can be used either to understand the world or to change the world. Even this distinction today is not very relevant, very pertinent, because you have scientists that build something, build some complex experiments. So you have a cross-fertilization between engineering and science. And I think that, okay, my purpose is to produce knowledge, okay? Because by education, I am an engineer. But then, of course, I did some very theoretical work, so science also is important for me. But I believe in this cross-fertilization between science and engineering, so producing knowledge, that's the important thing, not the distinction between science and engineering.
Now, something you said a minute ago suggested, I'm not sure you're saying this,
yes,
that perhaps there's less engineering thinking among fundamental scientists today. Would you say that's true?
No.
Okay.
No.
I
think, I think the distinction is going from phenomena to theory, this is science, and engineering is going from theory to artifacts, okay? So the distinction is very clear, but these are two complementary approaches to produce knowledge. And in trying to explain the world, you are doing some engineering work. For instance, to explore the universe, you are using some artifacts like telescopes, you are using satellites, okay? You have very, very complicated experimental settings, okay? So this is engineering, okay? Conversely, if you are a good engineer, then you have also to do some measurements, some experiments to understand the behavior of the artifacts you are building. So science and engineering are intertwined, in fact. And
it's the same now as when you were a student?
Less, no. Today, I think it's much more intertwined and much more, yes, interrelated, yes.
Anything else you'd like to say before we finish up?
No, nothing special. All I can say is that I am very curious by nature, and I like to learn a lot, and I have many different interests, not only in computing systems, and I like very much to learn and to think also about what happens in the world. Not only in science and engineering, but how that changes the world. I'm really impressed by the speed at which the world changes today. And the technology plays, in particular in ICT, what we call ICT, information and communication technologies, play a very, very important role. And of course, the question I'm going to talk about that tomorrow is how the world will be changing over the, say, next 10 or 20 years. What you probably heard about the Internet of Things. So I'm also studying this and the evolution of the the way we live, we behave, we work with all these technologies. For instance, the impact of autonomous systems in our lives, self-driving cars. I'm going to talk about that tomorrow, by the way. So the impact of technology on our lives and how this is going to change and how far we will go in that direction. That's a very, very important question.
More of a technical or a social question, do you think?
I think it's technical, but also you have societal and political questions, and these also are intertwined. Just to consider the case of self-driving cars. So in general, the use of autonomous systems. Today, we don't have the theoretical tools for guaranteeing their safety and security, that's sure. And but some people want that we move forward, and I think they are taking some kind of risks. You've heard about some accidents with self-driving cars, Teslas, and I think we should be a bit more careful with the deployment of technologies. You see, I have worked a lot with the development of standards for avionics systems, and for aircraft, we are much more serious and much more rigorous in guaranteeing their safety. Now the problem is that the techniques that we have applied for aircraft cannot be applied for craft for many reasons, for economic reasons, but also because aircraft, we want them fully autonomous. We don't have still autonomous aircraft. So the idea to have fully autonomous cars is a good one, but I think that in some cases we're taking risks, and we need new techniques. I'm getting technical perhaps, because all these AI techniques, we don't completely understand how they work and cannot be certified. It's like magic, okay? Just to give you an example, all the systems engineering is based on the use of specifications. And then we have a very rigorous development cycle that guarantees that the whole process of construction of the artifact is correct. These techniques cannot be applied to machine learning, because you see, when you learn to a neural network to distinguish between a cat and a dog, you don't specify the differences between cat and dog. You don't specify. I mean, you just show pictures and you say success, not success, okay? And so it's a different kind of computation, a different kind. I mean, these are not algorithmic procedural systems. Neural networks learn like kids learn, by applying other techniques that are inductive techniques, are not procedural techniques. So we have to better understand these techniques before using them in cars or in other critical systems.
I look forward to seeing your talk.
Yes, you know, that's a very interesting topic. You have, and also the stakes are very important. Yeah. There is a risk that someday we declare, based on statistic arguments, that you will have only self-driving cars. And for instance, the US decided that in 5 years we have only self-driving cars because we save, I don't know how many deaths per year based on statistic arguments. This will be a problem with the European car industry, for sure. And this poses also other questions of that have to do, I mean, are more ethical nature, because you will not have anymore the freedom to, I mean, you will not be anymore responsible for what happens to you. And you see statistics, I mean, the statistical reason, with this statistical reason, you can go very, very far. You see in statistics, you have people who drive when they are drunk, they have smoked, I don't know what, etc., okay? And for me, I drive very carefully, and I never had a serious accident, okay? I hope I will never have. So this statistical argument is somehow a threat to our personal freedom. Think about that. And this can be generalized. We can have autonomous systems everywhere in the future because it's more safe, but this will drastically reduce our personal freedom.
I may have to cut you off.